All right, what is up, everybody? Just wanted to take a little time and talk about what I'm looking forward to with the Abyss of Dagath update coming out in just a couple days. I think this is going to be a pretty huge update for Warframe. Obviously, I'm looking forward to the new Warframe, new content, Grendel Prime, all that. But I think the quality of life improvements that are going to be coming to the game are some of the best changes they've made in a long time. Things like, having your vacuum and your enemy radar aren't just going to like randomly go away. You can actually like rely on those because your pets won't be dying and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of like really obvious benefits to the changes that are coming. And so the big changes, at least in my opinion, are obviously there's all the new stuff, but I think the um, companion rework and the shield gating changes are going to be absolutely massive and completely shift like the meta of how we're building warframes, potentially even significantly change how we're doing builds in general. And I think there's a few reasons for that. So one, I'm really excited to mess around. This is probably my number one thing is pet set mods. I might have to change this dog's name from MR fodder to something a little more flattering. So I think that the mecha set could be very, very, very fun. So as you can see, the set bonus for the mecha set is your companion marks an enemy, and they get like this little white wolf Kubro looking symbol over their head. If you kill that enemy, all their status effects get spread within some area. Okay, and so you can see if I take this off, the area and the time both scale with the number of mods. So if I put this back on, so when you have this maxed out, so let me switch to a mecha build here. Let me see. I'm trying to think. I know I have one on Anaros. Where is it? Okay. Oh no. My gosh. Okay, here we go. So this has the mecha set on it. So yeah, so every 15 seconds you can spread status effects to enemies in 30 meters. That's pretty big. 30 meters is a fairly large area. So this is something that you can use like any like heavy status application weapon. So like dumping a ton of heat procs. So let's say you have like a Phantasma Prime, you can just load an enemy up with heat procs. With this set bonus, you can share those heat procs to everything in 30 meters. I've made a video previously on Grendel where I used the mechas. Now this was the old version of Grendel, but it's still where I still use that build on the updated version of Grendel, which you can chuck his regurgitate at the marked enemy, and it's going to spread that toxin proc to an even bigger area, and not just the toxin, but whatever other status effects are on there as well. Which is why I've really liked. So when I've run this type of build, I've always done it with the Medjay Predicite. So I know people are like, "Oh my God, the Smita is going to be the best." Yes, if you want to farm stuff, sure. I don't even use the Smita right now because I just think the pet is like insanely boring. It doesn't do anything to your build. It just gives you like buffs. I think it's super boring. I know it's effective. I just don't like it. And they already said they're gonna nerf it. So I'm assuming they're probably just gonna like take the resource buffs out of charm. It seemed like they were very keen on nerfing charm. So I'm not gonna use the Smita at all. I don't use it right now. Um, so I know people are talking about like the Sahasa Kubro. I think Dig is gonna be really cool. Dig is like a really underutilized companion mod. I really like the Medjay Predicite because it, similarly to the Panzervulpaphyla, it has a way of applying viral. It also can like, kind of distract enemies a little bit. So it has like a decent amount of CC. It's not as good as the Panzer in that respect. But we don't know what the new companion mods are going to be. So I'm really looking forward to trying out the mecha set with frames that really like status effects. So for example, Varuna. So on Varuna, I use a 4 build on her. And the way that you can play Varuna is you sit in your stealth, you hit enemies with your 2, which applies a number of status effects. And then when that enemy dies, those status effects will get spread. The problem is that ability does not work like the mecha set. The mecha set will spread all the status effects that are on the enemy at their time of death. Varuna's 2 will only spread the status effects that Varuna's 2 put on the target. And her 4 applies slash. So you can get lucky, and if your 2 applies slash, then it will spread your 4's slash proc to a whole ton more enemies, and that'll like dramatically increase your clear speed as Varuna. The problem is it's total RNG. I wish that they would just make her 2 always proc slash because it would basically fix that problem. And you would have way more control, but that's like a whole separate issue. But regardless, you could specifically attack you know, tagged, the mecha tagged enemy, knowing that that huge slash proc your 4 applies is going to get spread. Same thing with like, you could do something like Ash with Marked for Death with rapiers, which is bugged right now. I put in a bug report. I'm really crossing my fingers that they fix that before with the Dagath update, because right now it's just not working with Fatal Teleport. But if that does get fixed, that could be really fun for the mecha set or any like heavy attacks that apply a lot of slash, whatever. I've actually used this set quite a bit. I think it's really fun making builds that synergize with this, but it has the same problem. It had the same problem that every Kubro has ever had. They just die all the time. They're literally always dead. So I'm hoping that we get some of these new companion mods and the improved companion stats. Let your companions live for a while. That's why I pretty much only use this on Grendel, because Grendel's a big beefy boy and the companion can get a lot of mileage out of the Link mods. So very excited to try Mech Overdrive. There is a kind of a worse set that I'm still interested in trying out, and so this kind of goes into my next point. There's the tech set for Kavats. So Kavats also have the synth set. I think the synth set is going to become a lot weaker with the update. And so I'll go into that a little later. So the tech set puts a zone on the ground, and that just does like a flat amount of damage over time. This is not very good. And so so if we look at the numbers here, I'm going to take one of these off so we can see how it scales. So both the timer to make a new zone, the radius of the zone, and the damage scale with the number of mods you're using from the tech set. So I don't think this is very good. However, because I'm a complete masochist, when I've played ARPGs in the past, and I personally think Warframe is honestly a lot more like an ARPG than it is like any other type of game. Um, I've always loved minion builds, and minions and like companions and stuff in Warframe have always been so dog shit, like so bad. Like, we used to use the Carrier Prime, and then the Smita came out, and now literally everybody only used Smita, and then Steel Path came out, and then the Panzer Volpaphyla came out, and then everybody only used the Panzer Volpaphyla. So, you know, integrating companions as like part of your build at all has been extremely limited. And even when you have, it was purely for utility and nothing else. So keep this set bonus in mind because this does damage over time in an area. And then we also have, now I don't even have this arcane. I would have to go either farm this or buy it. I'll probably just buy it. So there's the Theorem arcanes. Now there is a Theorem arcane, so Theorem Infection. So this synergizes with the Kit Gun residual arcanes. So standing in a zone created by said residual arcane increases the damage of your companions and summoned allies by, some massive percentage. It's like 20 times 4, so it's fairly large damage multiplier. Or sorry, 4 times 15. Looking at the wrong numbers. So, fairly large damage multiplier. I mean, 60% is nothing to scoff at, right? So, there are other ways that you can increase companion damage or like buff companions. And because I'm just like a complete idiot, I really want to try and make like a minion build in Warframe. So something where like, we've pretty much exclusively used companions for utility in the past. So like Necros, he has his shadows. You kind of try to like target the Eximus units to get those shadows because you'll get their buffs. Nyx, you can use mind control on like a Frost Eximus or something or whatever, like some kind of Eximus unit to try to get their buff, but you never, ever, ever use them for damage. However, companions can do damage. So, for example, if you look at the I'll just put Death Cube, right? So any Sentinel, so the heat up, I don't think I have it on here. Is it heat up or fired up? Fired up. Yeah, so this, if you put this mod on a companion, even right now, before the rework, and you have them use the Verglass, which in my opinion is like the best companion weapon. So I don't even think I have it configured. Yeah, I don't even have a damage build on here. But if you configure this for heat, and then you also have the heat proc or the heat damage from fired up, like your companions can shred enemies on Steel Path or Sentinels. Like this weapon actually does crazy damage. Problem was, it's the same problem with Kubros, right? Sentinels just die, and once you get to like 2 minutes into Steel Path, your Sentinels just are dead, and they're never coming back. So there was zero incentive to try and build around companion damage. Now, is this going to be good? No. I know this is going to be complete donkey, but I want to try it out anyways. I mean, that's the fun of Warframe, right? So another thing that I touched on a little bit earlier was, so let's look at pull up Protea here, and then I'm gonna pull up. Yeah, I'll just pull up my Panzer. Okay, so this is like kind of related to pet builds, but is a little bit more like energy economy stuff. So I think Equilibrium is going to be the stonks for Equilibrium. Like we're already pretty good. Like Equilibrium stonks were like solid. I think Equilibrium was already like the second best way to get energy. The best is obviously Energize. However, there's some changes coming to Equilibrium that I think is going to make it potentially just able to completely replace Energize on a lot of builds. So I use this build in the circuit. Now, why the hell am I using combat discipline? Well, Protea's dispensary is honestly like okay at best for energy regen if you're not using equilibrium. It only becomes like giga broken if you're using equilibrium, because then you're actually getting more energy back from the health orbs it spawns than from the energy orbs, even with Energize, because Energize has a cooldown. So every time it procs health orbs, you're just getting net more energy back from the health orbs. So I basically had to run combat discipline just because I didn't have a way to pick up health orbs. Because Protea has her shield satellites, which constantly regen your shields. And how it worked before was if you didn't have any health damage, you could not pick up health orbs. So it was very difficult to proc equilibrium. Now, nobody wants to use combat discipline. I used this in the circuit because you don't have companions. So what you can run on your companions is the synth set. So what does the synth set have? So there's two synth mods. So one is synth deconstruct, which enemies have a higher chance to drop health orbs if your companions injured them. So this is really great if you're using like a Panzer Vulpaphyla, which is just pooping out viral procs all over the place. Or, there's like the one, I think it's like I forget what the name of it is, but there's the one like Sentinel weapon that shoots out like a bunch of little explosive rockets. Like that can tag a whole bunch of enemies too. So, and then there's Synth Fiber, which health orbs increase your companion's armor. If you have this on your companion, even if they die, you can pick up health orbs at full health. Okay, so if you're running this, you probably want to run this, and that's how you would use Equilibrium. Now, in the past, Equilibrium, if we're talking about energy economy, Energize is the king, right? And Energize was part of why Energize is so insane is opportunity cost. Because when you're making a frame build or a weapon build or whatever, there's only like limited resources that you have available. You have constraints. So one constraint is your mod capacity. Another constraint is just the number of mods that you can slot in. I have more capacity than I can actually use with these mods on this build, right? So, which is like kind of dumb. I should probably put this on here, but anyways. So you have 2 arcane slots. That's another constraint. So Energize was always like a no-brainer for every single build because what the hell else arcane were you going to use? If we, go back to like right when shields got changed, right? The first time shields got changed before Scarlet Spear, which basically like only like the original arcanes and like there were like a couple new ones, but they were pretty much all bad. Like at that time, the only good arcanes were like Energize, Grace, and Guardian. And Energize was just the king. And that back then, like everybody just stacked health and armor, like blah blah blah. If you played Banshee, you couldn't survive into high level stuff. So then they introduced shield gating. So all of a sudden, the health and armor arcanes, those don't matter either. So Energize was basically like the only good arcane for a really long time. So its opportunity cost was extremely low considering the benefit it gave you, because what else are you going to put in that slot? Well, it's not really the case anymore because now, like, we have things like, arcane or molt augmented. I think a lot of the molt mods or molt arcanes are nuts. So just running like molt augmented and molt efficiency, like, this is like that's crazy value considering what you can get for mod slots. Like 60% ability strength, that's better than any single ability strength mod besides Blind Rage. And Blind Rage obviously has a massive downside in that it tanks your efficiency, right? So this is like an amazing investment. And then Molt efficiency, 36% duration. There's a lot of builds that love duration. And once again, it's kind of hard to get duration because yes, you have prime continuity, but after that, what are you going to use? Constitution kind of sucks. It costs a ton of capacity for what you get. Narrow-minded, yeah, sure. Narrow-minded is great if you don't mind tanking your range, but what if you don't want to tank your range? So then you're basically just have augur message. That's pretty much the only other option. Molt efficiency just lets you get so much more out of that stat. And then you can throw in like Archon shards and all that stuff. So there's a lot of competition for Arcane Energize. And I would almost say, like, I would say since there's 8 mod slots and there's only 2 Arcane slots, I would honestly almost say there's more competition for Arcane slots than for mod slots. So now, why wasn't Equilibrium able to surpass Energize before? Well, because there was more of an opportunity cost. It took up a mod slot. It took up multiple companion mod slots, which before we weren't really using those for anything, so it didn't matter. But if your companion died, you couldn't use Equilibrium anymore. So it was like kind of annoying to use. So now, if you have Equilibrium, you can always pick up health orbs. You don't need the synth set anymore. And we have all those new companion mods coming that look really strong. So I wouldn't be surprised if now this highly depends on how good the new companion mods are. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a world where we wanted to use more of those new companion mods and kind of like integrated our companions build into our Warframe build more than just they give us fetch or vacuum. Um, and that would make Equilibrium better because you don't need to waste companion mod slots on the synth set anymore. And Equilibrium can give you so much energy back. It is nuts. It is like, it's crazy how much you can get back from this mod. Even just using it like normally. And then if you add in something like any kind of increased chance to drop health orbs, and you are just rolling in the energy. So I'm looking forward to messing around with builds where you don't use Energize at all and you just use Equilibrium, especially with some of like the more, hopefully, more involved companion builds that you will hopefully be able to do with the new mods. So that's kind of like enough about companions. I think the other thing that's really huge is shield gating. Um, so I'm gonna just pull up Mirage because I think she's a good example. So right now, and I kind of talked about this in my like no helmet video on Titania, but I think that like, pillage is so freaking insane on helmets right now, right? And it kind of feels like the only option for a lot of squishy frames. Like I can't tell you the number of times I see like a video or like a Reddit thread about Gyre, and people are like, I can't survive as Gyre. I literally just die. And people are like, well, you have to run pillage. And it's like, well, that kind of sucks for a frame to like basically only function if you're using a helmet is like kind of feels bad. And a lot of that was how helmet or how shield gating worked, because you basically had to get back to that full value, and you were incentivized to have lower shields. Now we can use things like brief respite, auger mods. I've already talked, I think I've mentioned a few times how you can use something like, just have like a stat stick secondary with just the auger mods on here for more shield regen. So I think things that give you, I think pillage is probably going to be even better, honestly. But I think there are going to be other options to generate to like deal with enemy damage and have your frame survive, because like base shield gating without pillage is going to be a lot better. Um, so I think, one thing I'm curious about is shield. So the reason I have Mirage is because she's kind of like a maybe I think even a better example would be Banshee, right? Because Banshee is like, this is the frame I think of when I'm like super squishy, high damage, but needs shield gating so badly to live, right? So one thing that's getting buffed is the shield regeneration mods. So like fast deflection, fortitude, this kind of stuff. So, and I think that they're adding new ones, or I'm not exactly sure like what mods are coming, but it's going to be really really interesting seeing what happens with shields. I think frames that needed shield gating really badly to survive are going to have a much easier time surviving. You can drop your dragon key. Yes, you're going to want to use like brief respite, auger mods, regen shields. Don't let this build is just for Duviri, by the way. I wouldn't use this build. Um, so that should open up some options for frames. Now, another thing that I'm kind of curious about is how important status immunity, status cleansing is going to be. Because one aspect of pillage that I think really goes unappreciated is the fact that not only does it restore your shield, not only does it strip enemy defenses, it also cleanses you of status effects when you use it. And that a lot of times, this happens a lot when I'm playing Zephyr on Steel Path. Like enemy direct damage won't get through my turbulence, but like, like a Grenier Napalm's fire dot will. And if I don't have rolling guard up, like let's say I just, I had to use it for some reason and it's on cooldown, you could die because that ticking damage will destroy your shields and then kill you, right? And shields in general were very weak, or are very weak to dot damage. So damage over time. So I've used like rapid resilience before, or you can use rolling guard, or both if you really, really want to deal with that. So why do I think that this might be important? So the way that shield gating is going to work is the more shields you have when they break, not what is your total shields, but when your shields break, how much immunity are you going to get? How long of a period of is your shield gating going to last? So if you have a heat dot on you that's whittling down your shields, and then your shields don't break until they have like 60 shields left, you're still going to basically get that minimum shield gating time that we have now of 0.33 seconds. That's the minimum shield gating time in the new system as well. So I'm curious to see if something like status immunity, where, like Varuna's 2, she can become immune to statuses, or Titania's Spellbind, she can become status immune. Because one thing is, status immunity makes you also immune to knockdown and stagger. So you can replace Prime Surefooted with stagger or with status immunity. You also can't get damaged by damage over time effects. You'll still take like direct damage from toxin through shields, but you won't be able to have the toxin status effect. So why do I think like why? Well, what's the big deal? Well, in general, in most cases, damage over time effects do smaller instances of damage periodically rather than large bursts of direct damage. So I'm wondering if status immunity may be good because by preventing those small instances of damage and having your shields only take larger direct damage, there's a higher likelihood that your shields will break at a higher value, giving you a longer period of shield gaining. So we'll have to see how this actually shakes out, once the patch hits. But I'm wouldn't be surprised, and it's not like those aren't good already, right? Like status cleansing and status immunity are already good. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some combination of like status immunity plus a lot of like shield regen or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that became a thing. I'm not saying it will. We don't know until we get the patch, but I wouldn't be surprised. So I'm really interested to try like Banshee, Mirage, like these frames that like really need shield gating, but like don't, have a little bit of a tough time unless you're using like specific helmets or whatever. Um, I've been working, probably the one of the first builds I'm gonna make. I have a like no helmet Mirage build ready, but I didn't want to make a video on it yet because I was anticipating having to make significant changes because of the patch, as opposed to the Titania build where I don't think the patch is going to change much for that build. Um, so probably going to be making that video shortly after the patch drops. So in addition to this quality of life stuff, obviously I'm very excited about the new frame Dagath. I'm sure everybody is. She looks really cool. I think she has a ton of potential. The fact that she has like damage buffs, crit buffs, damage over time type thing, like some ability AoE damage with her like dot and doom and stuff, and then she has defense stripping with her horses or her Kaiths that she can shoot out. It's all the hallmarks of a really solid frame. So if she can survive, and I mean I've said this before, right? It's harder to survive in Warframe than it is to do damage. And her base kit looks really cool, so I would like to use her base kit without a helmet if possible. Hopefully she can survive without, through shield gating, through the new shield gating. But we'll have to see. And I am like I said, I'm a dumb masochist when it comes to this kind of stuff. So I have several Hydroid videos on my channel because I just think Hydroid's cool. I don't know why. I think his deluxe skin, like this skin, is so awesome. It is just amazing. So, and how I play Hydroid right now, I don't use his puddle. You can watch the videos I've made of him before. So yeah, this is like a dumb like tanky build on him. But in general, I think this is, yeah. So I've like used Pilfering Swarm, or no, sorry, the Title Impunity Augment to give you status immunity. This is just going to be a base thing on this now for yourself. I think that's awesome. I think this is a great augment. So using, I think his two as a grouping tool is way, way underappreciated. Like, I I'm not gonna say that Hydroid was good, okay? But I've played probably a lot more Hydroid than most people, and he's not as bad as people think he is. His two is a really good ability. His one is not the worst ever with the augment, but now the base ability is going to be extremely good, and the augment is kind of going to be insane. So I think Hydroid is going to be pretty kick-ass. I am very excited about Hydroid. Look how many Hydroid builds I have. I really like this frame. I don't know why. He just looks amazing, and I like the theme. So I'm very excited about Hydroid. I think he has like massive potential with the changes. He might be one of my new favorite frames, honestly, with how the changes look. So bless Pablo, the best Warframe designer ever. I think it's looking good. So that's what I'm excited about. I don't know if I've. It's so weird. Like this is just like a random mainline update, right? It's not like one of the new open worlds. Like I was there. I was there. I wasn't there for when the Path of Exile. Oh my God, Plains of Eidolon came out. But I was there for Fortuna and Duviri and Deimos and all that stuff. I don't think I've ever been more excited for a Warframe update, just because these quality of life changes are so good. Um, so yeah, I'll probably be making a bunch of videos once the patch goes live. I hope everybody has a lot of fun. I hope the new frame is fun, and hopefully it's not too bad to farm. And hope everybody stays healthy, stay safe, and let me know in the comments if you have anything you want me to look at. So thanks everybody. Hope you have a good one. See ya.